Our situation's a little bit different. When I was out today checking the roads and everything, flat roads are fine. We have a bit of a different setup. There's a bunch of hills. There's hills that go down into the parking lot, all of that. And if you're out shoveling today, the parts that you shoveled can get a little slippy afterwards. So probably everybody would have been great and it would have been fantastic to be together. But the chance of anything terrible happening or anybody slipping and falling or anything like that was just not worth it. I guess this is the way that I'm saying it, but that doesn't sound great. So we'll just leave it at that. So sorry, but we're here. We're connecting. Um, as far as worship today, we're going to get into the message in a second. But as far as worship today, what I would really encourage you to do is today was going to be the day that Robert May's Christmas CD is on sale at our place that you can pick one up. But what I would ask to do is to listen to a little bit of worship music today. Listen to that. Now you may not have a streaming service that you use for all of your music, which is available everywhere on all of those streamers. You can go to YouTube and just look up. And I know you can get to YouTube because you're on it right now. Robert May Christmas, and there's the full album. That could be a way to focus a little bit today on the season. As far as the season goes, how it's going to look the next week and a half. We have about a week and a half till Christmas. Next week, this week, Tuesday is open door, and 7 o'clock. So get there. We just connect a little bit. We pray. It's a really cool time to be together and know what everybody's going through and get to know each other a little bit better. Next Sunday, we have the first of the Christmas messages. It's going to be a two-part message. So next Sunday's the first one there, and then on Wednesday is Christmas Eve. It's Christmas Eve is Wednesday, right? Okay, Christmas Eve Wednesday, and that's going to be at 7 o'clock in the evening. There'll be no open door that week, but next week. But Wednesday is Christmas Eve. We'll have it at 7 p.m., and that'll be the second part of that. Following Sunday, we have our New Year's message, and they're all kind of connected in my head, at least. So you can come together. It's a kind of not exactly a three-part message, but a little bit. Thursday is going to be the grief group with Sally Orlando at the church at 6, and I think that's all of the announcements that we have. The big thing coming up is the Bible in a year. We're about to get into that as a community. So there's Bibles out at the front in the narthex under a table that are yours to take. If you decide that you'd like to try this, the Bible's broken up into a bunch of different things. It's an Old Testament, a New Testament, and then a Psalm and a Proverb, and they're all matched up like that. Like if you had it today and you were going to look for Ecclesiastes, it would be difficult for you to find it. But if you're reading it every day, you don't have to skip around the Bible at all. It's just set up exactly like each day. So it can be really easy to read that way. Now, that's one. Two, we're going to be able to go through this together. There's going to be a Facebook page where we can interact. There's probably going to be groups throughout the year, but it'll generally be just a time that we can talk and kind of move into this together. It should be a really cool time, and what I know is that as we read the scriptures, we change, we become something different, and all of us together reading the same things at the same time. It'll be really, really interesting to see what that looks like and how that comes out of us in all kinds of different ways. It's really exciting. Angel just mentioned the other night as we were talking about Christmas Eve, and there's so many churches in our area, and there's so many churches throughout the world, and Christmas Eve, at least in our area, we might all be having Christmas Eve at the same time, and there's some power in everybody doing the same thing. The church, the Big C church, doing the same thing at the same time. So it's pretty exciting, and this Bible in a year is the same kind of way. I can pretty well guarantee you that the person that starts the Bible in a year will not be the person that ends the Bible in a year, because you will be very, very different at the end. So that's a cool thing that's coming up not next Sunday, the following Sunday, New Year's Sunday, on the 28th, we will have a short meeting afterwards just to address a little bit of the questions about how we are going to move through this as a community. Now, how you do it on your own is up to you. Whenever you read it or how you read it or anything like that, that's up to you. But how we do it as a community might be pretty interesting to you. So we'll do that right after church on the 28th. Now, let's move into the message. Today it's called Not Every Album Was Nevermind. So we'll get there. That'll make sense in a second. So open up your Bibles to Ecclesiastes 7. That's where we are. And I'll give you just a second. Might be a little bit different today because you're probably watching me on some kind of device, and that might also be your Bible. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder if we all have hard copies of the Bible. That's an interesting thing I'm just thinking about. Okay, so chapter 7, verse 7, and it starts off extortion, and it might be translated in your Bible, oppression, turns a wise person into a fool. Remember that, okay? That's what we'll come right back to in a second. Oppression turns a wise person into a fool, and a bribe corrupts the heart. The end of a matter is better than the beginning, and patience is better than pride. Do not be quickly provoked in spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Now, the first observation that we have is lately, in the early parts of chapter 7, he's been given an awful lot of praise and about the positives of pain and mourning and adversity. But as we hear here, oppression turns a wise person into a fool. Sometimes it's too much, right? Have you ever been in that position where it's just too much? There's too much pain, there's too much stress, there's too much anxiety, there's too much on your shoulders, and it starts to turn you a little bit different. You're not growing in character or any of that. Sometimes it's just too much, and too much can really, you've seen it before, too much can break us and turn us into people that we don't even really recognize. So that's, I think, what he's talking about here. And the interesting part about Solomon in this book and all the wisdom books is he and they seem to walk really, really easily into contradiction. The truth of human reality. And he knows that there's a timing of wisdom. And there's really, really few black and white situations. How many times have we asked the question here, well, is it this or is it this? And the answer is yes, right? Or is it this? Or what do you think? Well, there's two options. We live in a world that's increasingly divided into, it's like a binary world, like it's a 0 or a 1. And that's just not real life. That's not real life. But we've decided, we've bought those lies, and we've decided that we're either 0s or 1s when most of us are somewhere in between, right? So, and wisdom is like that too. Well, should I do this? Yes. No. Well, maybe the answer changes tomorrow, or it changes next week, or it changes with the season, or where that person is, all of that. So there is a timing of wisdom. There is a part that you can't just have a manual that tells you what to do in every situation. I constantly refer to those Proverbs verses that says they're directly after each other. Answer a fool in his folly. And the next one says, don't answer a fool in his folly. It's classic because no one size fits all, right? So wisdom is like that. Wisdom recognizes that there's sometimes contradiction. It's sometimes complex. It's not just yes and no all the time, okay? So he understands that, and that's what he gets into. Adversity, pain, can really, really deepen us, can open us up, can increase our empathy and our hearts and open us up to other people. And other times, it can close us up. It can break our hearts and our spirits and just do the exact opposite. Then he walks into pride, and there's two kinds of pride, right? It's a funny word in the scriptures because it's almost, whenever you hear it in church or me talk about it or in the Bible, it's often with that really negative connotation. But there's, I think, two kinds of pride. And the first one is a self-respect. It's a satisfaction. It's a pleasure in accomplishments, right? It's not bragging, and it is absolutely valuable. When you do a great job, it feels good. It feels good, right? And it should. Sit in it for a little bit. And do that kind of often. Like, do the thing. When you show up, when you work hard, when you win, I have one of my sons is in construction. When he builds something, when they do a great job, they should sit. They take pictures of it, and they should sit and realize what a great job it is. My other son plays basketball. When they win, when he works hard, and the shots go in, and they win, settle in that. That's his one certain kind of pride. Now, there's a guy in church. So this was supposed to be in church, and there's a guy, and I was going to say, I'm not going to name any names, but it's Dave Gill. Okay, so, but then I was thinking as this happened, I could tell this story about anybody. But Dave Gill in particular, he changed his life. He absolutely changed his life, a whole lifetime of a certain way, and he left the addiction behind. He broke generations of curses, and he has this family where he instilled this new sense of safety and stability in everyone around him, right? I'm proud of him. We're all proud of him. He should be too. That's the kind of pride we're talking about. The pride where the Holy Spirit mixes with us and we move forward into something new, and it's good, right? We have to be able to acknowledge that. So our first questions with that are, can we see when and where we do a good job and acknowledge it? The key to all of this is, where do those gifts come from, right? How did Dave Gill change his life, right? Did he do that by himself? Of course not. Where do all gifts, where do all blessings come from? The strength to do those kind of things, to break generational curses, they don't come from inside of us, right? They are divinely inspired and given, and we are guided by the Spirit inside of us and given the strength and the courage that we need to move into those things. But sometimes, so the most important part of this is that sometimes we diminish those gifts and those accomplishments in what you can only really describe as a pseudo spirituality. It's a fake humility. We all know the people that are like, well, nothing I do is great. By myself, I'm just nothing. And there's truth in that, but, who gave us these gifts? Right? Who made us? Who made us the way that we are, and who's transforming us every day? When I was in school, we made ashtrays. That's how long ago I was in school, right? Everybody smoked, and we made these ashtrays. And sometimes they looked terrible, and they were just blobs. But sometimes they looked kind of nice. Mine didn't, but whatever. But they were the school project back in the day. So if I made you an ashtray, if I brought you that ashtray home, and you said, this is worthless, this is absolute garbage, and put it in the trash. Now, how does that make me feel? Okay? So many times in the scriptures, Jesus will say, and how much more is your Father in heaven? Right? Our emotions don't relate one-to-one to God's, okay? And they never could. But they give us a picture. The point is, what we're talking about is how much more so in our Creator, who makes you, creates you, shapes you out of lumps of clay, and calls you wonderfully made, calls you very good. Who are you to say you are not? Right? Who are you to take this wonderful thing that God has made and say, it's worthless? It's worthless. It's disrespectful. It's blasphemous to your Creator, to our Creator. Right? I'm not talking about the ashtray didn't make itself. Right? We're never worshiping the gift instead of the giver. But through that, we acknowledge what the gift giver, what the Creator has done here. When we go outside and appreciate this beautiful snow, look outside. Look outside. I hope you're under the covers right now and in bed just watching and all this stuff. Look out the window. It's beautiful, right? Look at the people that are in your home with you, if there's people in your home with you. Those people are wonderfully made by the Creator of the universe. If they're not there, call somebody on the phone today. Speak to somebody. All of these things were beautifully. Look at how you move. All of the gifts that you have. These all come from God. Who are we to say that they're junk or that they're useless? They don't have any value, right? You were made generously given all of these gifts, these abilities, these talents, not because of you, but because of him. And how we can honor, praise, and worship him and express our gratitude to him for this is by leaning into that creation, right? By working to develop the gifts that we've been given, by growing, by developing, by using them, and by blessing his world through them, right? And Genesis 12, here's the thing about a day like today, first of all. With nothing else going on, I'm just free to talk all day. I'm just free to talk all day. Otherwise, the message might be 50 minutes. But I'm cool to talk all day, right? Because we're just here. So anyway, what's happening is in Genesis 12 is God calls Abraham and says, you'll be my chosen people. And why? To bless the world. To bless the world. That's the point of all this. All of this is about blessing. So you're made in the way that you are, given the gifts that you've been given, not to hold for yourself, but to take it out. To take it out, to change the world, to witness, to shout about, to have your actions and your gifts shout about the goodness of our God and the grace of our God. That's what this is for, right? True humility acknowledges who we actually are, right? Now, the first part of that is it's his refrigerator. It's his story. But here's the thing. Our picture's on it. He made us, he made you in, by, and for love on purpose. If you ever start to think that there's no meaning, there's no purpose, you're a mistake, all of these things, those things are just nothing but lies. They're nothing but lies. That is not how you were created. And God doesn't do anything without intention and beauty and meaning, right? So when we decide that that's not the case, we've brought a different story. We're talking about a different story now. And it's not the real story. It's not the truth. So that's about pride. But when we start to think it's our fridge, then it turns into a different kind of pride. And that pride is the second one, which is a self-importance, a self-obsession. That's conceit, that's condescension, that's arrogance, right? That's the kind of pride that the Bible is mostly talking about when we talk about idolatry or sin and things like that, places where we miss the mark. That's the pride we're talking about. And it's the one he's talking about here. This is the big sin, and it's all through the Bible, right? It's the one that says it's my story. It's my talent. It's my world. It's the one that thinks the ashtray made itself and everything revolves around the ashtray, right? That's how silly it is. It's never, but the ashtray's important, and it was made with love and kindness. It's not the ashtray's story. Okay. When we start to inflate this kind of pride, we go back to that first question and remember, where do all gifts and all blessings come from? We have our very lives, and especially these brand new lives, these reborn lives because of him. That's grace. It was free. We didn't do anything to deserve any of it, right? It's all because of him. That's grace. Genesis 1 and 2, we are created, all of creation, in, by, for love. And he gives us the free will to love him back. And that's perfectly symbolized in those two trees. We can love him or we can not. We can choose his beautiful big story or we can choose our own. Right? Those are the two, that's the picture of those two trees. Right? Then the ultimate act of grace in his story, in this story that we are a part of, is the gospel. It's Jesus Christ and his life, death, and resurrection, right? It's death to life. His death to his life and to our life, right? He recreated the road home that we destroyed, that we broke, and he recreated it with him forever and ever and ever. It's his refrigerator. It's his story. And if we forget that for even a moment, that's when everything gets sideways for us. Okay? Now, Ecclesiastes has an order in this passage that we're talking about. It has a progression. Patience is better than pride. Okay? And those two things don't exactly click together because it's not direct opposites, except for when you say, pride says, I matter, and I matter now. Okay? That's what pride's about. I want what I want, and I want it right now. Okay? Because I deserve it. Everything exists to give me what I want now. So, patience is better than pride. Impatience then leads to provocation, and if you've ever been in the long line at the store or looking for a parking place or anywhere, if you're at the light at 9:34 and 4:22, impatience leads to provocation because there's no turning light there if you're on 9:34, and it's just driving you crazy instead of patient, right? So the impatience leads to provocation, which leads to anger, which turns us into a fool. And if you've ever sat next to me at that light at 4:22, you see what a fool looks like, because I just get so mad, my face gets all red, and I start to complain about the people who've decided that we didn't need a turning light there, right? You see what I mean? The road and driving can bring out all of these things and make this example, this illustration really come to life, right? You know what I mean? Impatience provokes us, turns to anger, which turns us into fools. Now. Here's where this all becomes really, really cool. What's the opposite of those words? Pride, impatience, anger. It's gratitude. It's gratitude. Everything we have, everything we get is unearned. They're gifts from him, right? I sometimes get angry with my boys because they don't do what I want. They don't give me what I want now, right? The truth is, there's never been a second. There's never been a world where I deserve two people that deserve to have two sons like them. They are nothing less than the absolute, amazing, abundant, overflowing love of God towards me and towards you and towards the whole world. And why? Why did he do any of this? Because I'm so awesome? No way. It's because he is. Right? So patience, impatience, provocation, anger, the opposite of those things is just gratitude. I'm so thankful that I get to drive. I'm so thankful that there's green lights and red lights. I'm so thankful that there's order. Right? I'm so thankful to live in this town. Right? I don't have to live in this town. But all of these things can come together. That's the way that we start to shift our perspective on all this. See, there's two worlds. There's two choices, life and eternity, or death and a life under the sun. That's what Solomon's talking about. This life, what he calls the world under the sun is really just death, right? It's a life apart from God, which is another way to say death, right? And the other side is death and eternity. So, we have some choices here. Will it be the hollow, temporal, false gospel that we get to choose, right? The false gospel of me, the one that says I need to eat from the tree of good and evil, of knowledge of good and evil, right? Is that the one that says I don't want God to be God anymore. I want to be God, right? Is that the one that we choose, or the one true gospel of Jesus Christ? And the thing is that we get to choose, but we have to choose. And the thing about that is, oftentimes, I always say, because I'm so cool and not judgy and things like that, and that can be really, really seen as almost like an apathy. Like, whenever we get there. But that's the opposite. That's the opposite of how I feel inside. When you have tasted gratitude, love, it's just like when you hear a great song, you want everybody to hear it, right? That's how I feel all the time, right? I want you to experience peace and love and kindness and patience. I want us all to experience that. I want us to all stop hurting each other, stop being violent to each other, stop oppressing each other. I want us to stop squishing each other, right? It's just, I can't decide that for you. Nobody can decide that for somebody else. But we do. We get to decide that. God's working inside of us all the time. And we get to then decide. And that decision, why would we ever wait for that? What doesn't look like urgency is absolutely urgency. It's just a different kind. When you go, why would you ever want to wait for that? If you haven't heard the song There's a Light That Never Goes Out by the Smiths, why would you not want to hear that right now? Your life's going to be exponentially better at the end of it. Why would you not want to hear it right now? Right now, wait 15, 20 minutes. And then you can. Or even wait an hour after you listen to Robert's message. But then check that out. Why would you not want to? We get to choose now, today. Right? We often talk about it as present realities. There's death, there's separation from God, and then there's life and relationship with God. We get to choose at any point to jump that track and move up here into that thing that we've always wanted, into belonging, into acceptance, into the overwhelming beauty of love, beauty and safety of love. That's what we get to do. So why would we ever want to wait 1 second? So those are our two choices. And that's the choice that's the choice that Solomon has been setting up for us in all of Ecclesiastes. But as long as we're speaking about today, 7:10 says, do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is not wise to ask such questions. Of course, we learn from, we appreciate the past. Of course, that's so much of what changes us when we look at our past and we pay attention and we see the mistakes or we see the successes, the things that brought us life, the things that were beautiful, like we were talking about earlier, the place where we can be pride, where we can have pride in our work and in the things that we've created, right? Of course, that's all true. What is that thing that says, those who know the past are doomed to repeat it? Those who don't know the past are doomed to repeat it. I say it the other way because that quotation is absolutely false. It's absolutely false. People can know the past all they want, and we still are doomed to repeat it. But we can change that. But there is truth in that, because as we learn the past, then we can apply that to today and hopefully create a different future, right? But this verse is speaking of a different way to see yesterday. And what it's talking about is a word called nostalgia. And this is what I would be like, has anybody ever heard of nostalgia? Okay. Nostalgia is not exactly a positive emotion, right? It's when we look at the past as better. We romanticize what happened. It's like the gauzy thing in rom-coms where it's just the best parts, right? It's just the best parts and all the other stuff fades away on the outside. It's just the parts that we want to remember and we just get rid of all the rest. It's a bittersweet mix of pleasure and sadness, right? It's a longing to go back there. It's a longing to bring that here, right? It's a longing for that. The thing is, can we? Can we? Pandora. Has anybody ever heard of Pandora, right? Of Pandora's box. The story of Pandora was the first created mortal, right? And Zeus gave a jar to Pandora, or a box. I think it was a jar, but it's just called Pandora's box now. And he commanded her not to open it, okay? Now, what that speaks to me, what I hear right there is when I say, when we're in the building, and I say, don't go up there, right? All you want to do is go up there. This is different from a two trees situation. This is not the choice. This is a choice between don't do the thing. If I tell you don't eat the Oreo, all you're going to want to do is think about eating the Oreo. But if there's a yes, it's the difference between a yes and a no. It's why Paul always starts his things by, instead of doing these things, do these things, right? If he just says, stop that. That's why it's so hard. It's so hard to just stop something if it's not replaced with anything. So, that's what I think about with all that. But anyway, as you would expect, when you have that kind of thing, he says, here's a box for you, don't open it. Of course, like every one of us, she does, and she releases all evils, okay? It's the sorrow, it's disease, it's vice, all the evils of the world. And the reason I'm telling you this is because you can't turn back time. You can't put back in the box what's already been released, right? Everything is like that. The passage of time for us is like that, okay? When it's been opened, it's out. It's out. There's no putting the things back in the box. Now, just a really interesting note about the story of Pandora. There is a last thing in it. All of these terrible things, the great evils of the world, come out. And there is one last thing in it, and it's hope. And it's hope to cope with the suffering, the evil, the pain that's been released with all this. And I think that's a beautiful thing at the end. Anyway, back to the point of all that. Time and humanity moves forward. This is absolutely by design. The garden of Genesis 1 becomes a city of Revelation 2:1 and 2:2, right? The garden, Genesis 1 and 2, city, Revelation 2:1 and 2:2, okay? In Genesis 1 and 2, so many of the created order is commanded with the word dasha, which means produce, right? Take this story forward, make more, do the thing, name the animals, make more trees, interact with your world and shepherd it forward, right? It becomes Jews to Gentiles, right? The story is always expanding. The arms are always opening greater, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's moving forward. There's never any putting anything back in the box. Now, it's nice to think, and I do it all the time. It is nice to think about how cool everything was in the 90s, especially music, right? But was it? Was it? That's the interesting question of this. This, and I'm going to hold it a little bit further away. This is Nirvana, Nevermind. This is the greatest, one of the greatest albums that's ever been made, okay? I'm sure that you recognize it. I'm sure that you probably have it in your collection. If you don't, well, there's other things to do today. Anyway, so that's one of the greatest albums. But the thing about the 90s are, when you think about the 90s, you think of Nevermind. Okay? You think of that album, you think of Smells Like Teen Spirit. You think of this amazing shift in everything that started with that. We could talk about that forever. But not every album was Nevermind. Some are pretty horrible. There was a thing called Limp Bizkit back in the 90s. There was an Insane Clown Posse in the 90s. There was something called Puddle of Mudd, and mud was spelled with 2 D's, right? Not everything was Nevermind. Some of it was really pretty terrible. This is the same kind of emotion. That's why we got back together with that high school boy or girlfriend, right? We remembered the good, we forgot the garbage, and we forgot the reasons that it ended, and we tried to bring it back. We the nostalgia of what it was. And your friends are all saying, why are you doing this? And it's because of nostalgia, right? It's why we look at the 90s and only remember Nevermind, right? Because there's a general truth about the past that we forget. It was never as good or as bad as we remember, right? It's like in any kind of relationship. Sometimes people will say things like, let's just get back to how we were. And you can't. You can't. That can never, ever happen. We are not those people anymore, right? This isn't what it was, right? Instead, though, and this is the beauty of it. This is the beauty that's missed. It is an invitation to integrate the past. Every day is an invitation to integrate the past, to keep what's important, to learn from all of it, and move forward and create something new. Right? That's the invitation of today. We take this stuff and all the things that happened to us and made us who we are and made everything the way that it is, and we can fix the things, we can get rid of the terrible things, and we can bring some new things in it. The new and old wineskins is a metaphor all through the scriptures. And when we talk about things like that, we have the new things for the new things. But we're still bringing along the traditions and the wonderful things that brought us to this point, that are important, right? Not all of the festivals were thrown away when Jesus came, right? When Jesus died and was resurrected. There was just some new ones too, right? We bring what's important and we get rid of the rest, right? Because that space that we think was so great, it just wasn't. Or that place where we think was just so bad, it wasn't. It was never as good or as bad as we remember. Memory is such a funny thing. And we forget what's actually real. There was this amazing documentary on. And it was about the really idiosyncrasies of memory, where it's like a puzzle. Think about it like a puzzle. We remember some pieces of the puzzle. Just some pieces. We don't ever remember the whole thing, but our mind doesn't like only a couple of pieces. So it makes the whole thing. It fills in the rest of the puzzle. And then over time, we forget that what part our minds made up and what parts were the real pieces. We can't tell the difference. And I think that's the kind of thing that brings about nostalgia, right? We can't remember the parts that were actually real or what happened or any of that stuff. But more importantly than all of this stuff combined, is nostalgia has an ability to steal the present. Nostalgia is almost a direct opposite of mindfulness and presence, right? My usual prayer, if you've ever been somewhere with me and I pray, and I have to pray out loud, my prayer is, let's open our hearts and our eyes to be here right now. Okay, keep us here now. This is a faith that asks us to be fully present, to be aware, to be awake, to be engaged. And the big enemies are the past and the future and the temptation to go somewhere or somewhen else, right? Those are all the things that lead to distraction. They are distracting us for what's here in front of us right now. By looking to go back, we lose the very, very real opportunity of the now. And a theologian named Wright says, even Christians sometimes overestimate the early church, the Reformation, or periods of revival. Wise people certainly learn from the past, but they live in the present with all its opportunities. So what we're getting at here is this kind of backwards thinking. This kind of mourning what happened then, mourning the then, is not a wise thing. Okay? And then moving on in Ecclesiastes. Wisdom, like an inheritance, is a good thing and benefits those who see the sun. Wisdom is a shelter as money is a shelter, but the advantage of knowledge is this. Wisdom preserves those who have it. Wisdom and knowledge are very, very different, right? I can know all the verses. I can know the history of the scriptures, but if it doesn't change my life, if it doesn't help me love my neighbor, then what good does it do? If it's all in my head, and it never ever makes the jump to my heart, then so what? You can read the 5 Love Languages book over and over and over. As soon as you finish, start it over again, and you keep reading and reading and reading. But if you never take that stuff out and take it for a spin and start loving people in the love languages that they have, what a colossal waste of time. What a huge waste of time any of this is if it never gets from here to here, right? We know Jesus says to not judge, right? We know Jesus says to love our neighbor, to not store up our treasures here, to not worry. Oh boy, there you go, right? And on and on and on. We can probably even find those passages pretty easily in the Bible. I think all of those are in the Sermon on the Mount. So Matthew 5-7. We can find them pretty easily. Maybe we even have them memorized, right? Yet, we do judge all the time. We don't love our neighbor. And we don't always love our spouses. We don't love our children. We don't love anybody sometimes, right? We still worry. We still put all sorts of other things at number one. See, sports and politics are the national religions, and they're the national religions for Christians too, right? Divorce is at 50% for in the church too, right? These ridiculous porn sites that I could list all day, these porn stats that I could list all day long, they apply to Christians in the church too, right? We want the 10 Commandments posted everywhere, right? And we can't keep them. We're usually out at the first one, right? It's just crazy how all of this works. We know all of these things. We know the things that hurt us. We know the things that are damaging us, that are taking us apart. We know the decisions that are making us love us less. And we just keep doing them. It's because the head hasn't made the jump to the heart. So, why do you think that is? All of these things are leading to these questions. Why do you think that is? And this is a really, really important first step. We have to know what it says. We have to know. It has to get up here. The knowledge has to be there, right? Otherwise, we're just taking it out of the sky, right? But the knowledge has to make that jump. And the question is, how can we believe the Bible? How can we know what it says and not do it? These are the things that are just taking me apart right now. Okay? I'm going to read a verse, a couple of verses. Okay? Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. Love does not demand its own way. Love is not irritable, and it keeps no record of wrongs. It's never glad about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Have we heard that before? Do you know those things are true? We could talk about the Greek word agape, right? And that agape doesn't care if you like it and doesn't care if you want to, right? We know without a doubt. Now, so many of us say the Bible doesn't make any sense to me, okay? And that's true. That's absolutely true. There's lots of passages that don't make any sense, right? That we have a lot of trouble understanding what the authors were actually getting at, okay? The Bible and Jesus Christ says to love. We know that. And it also says that love is these things. Love is patient and love is kind. And on and on and on. Okay? How come so many of us are out at the first one? We're out of the first one here too. Why is that? How can we be so hypocritical to these things? How can we hear these things? How can we hear, love your wife, right? And okay, what's love? There it is. There it is. We just read it. We read it every week, right? And so how come I can't do that? Right? Why do I choose not to? Right? All of these things. Why can't I love my neighbor? Why can't I love my enemy? Why are we still living under this ridiculous idea of us and them? Why are we still doing this? Why are we still hating people on the other side of the political aisle? Why is that? Why are some of us who absolutely point to the Bible at every opportunity? Why are we sometimes the worst at judgment? Right? These things are just too much to think about, but they have to be thought about. Right? And the answer, let's be fair, the answer is one word, and it starts with an I, right? And it rhymes with idolatry. Okay? And it has always been a problem for us. It's a problem for us in Genesis 3, and it's a problem for us on December 14th, 2025. It's always been a problem. So, when we read, Ecclesiastes is part of something called the wisdom literature. Okay? So, what Ecclesiastes is doing is opening our eyes to that there are two different kinds of worlds. One where the refrigerator's his, and one where the refrigerator's ours. This is a world of idolatry. Okay? Now, what the Bible keeps saying to us, one of the words that is said over and over and over in the scriptures is remember. I just read the other day, Paul says we were given the Old Testament, the account of the Exodus. Those people that are moving through there so that we never forget. We never forget who God is and what he's done and how much he loves us. That's what it's for. That's why we read the Old Testament. That's why we spend our time in Ecclesiastes, because Solomon is giving us all of these things. And in each of these verses, he's giving us these choices, right? He's pointing out the spaces where we've wandered away. He's pointed out exactly what to do. And by remembering, this is exactly what to do. We have to see it. We have to acknowledge it. Now, usually, we do the thing, and then we notice it. Let's bring this thing back. Let's do the thing and see it right away. And return. That's what repent means. Repent just means to turn. Okay? So, we do the thing, and we just keep returning. We keep asking. We keep seeking. We keep knowing. We keep choosing to bring ourselves under him, and keep choosing to not bring ourselves under anything or anyone else. And what we find today through these couple of verses are the things that we so often do. Distraction, anger, pride, nostalgia, the past, the things that we remember, the things we want it to be, our own self-interest. And all we do is we notice them. We notice these places of idolatry in our lives. And all we do is we take him right back to his feet and we set him down. And we ask and we seek and we knock. And we keep knocking. Like that neighbor. I don't like the parable too much because I think that's one of the ones that's confusing. But it's the neighbor that just keeps knocking on the door. And it drives the people crazy. It drives the people crazy, and it should. But I think it's a really nice, I think it's a nice illustration of our lives. We keep coming back, we keep asking. Keep seeking him, keep knocking, because we want life. We want the life that he promises. We want to love each other, and we just can't get it from here to here. So we keep knocking, saying, help me do this. Help me figure it out. Help me participate with what you're doing in giving me a new life, making me a new creation. That's what all this is about. And the thing about Jesus is that he's going to. He's always honest. He's always true. Yesterday, today, and forever and ever and ever. His promises are totally true. They might not happen the way that we think they are, but they're happening, right? So, we keep bringing them back. We keep bringing them back. We keep rooting the idolatry out of us, right? Or letting him root the idolatry out of us. And we see our lives transform in so many different ways. Right? The love pyramid, my love pyramid scheme takes off in a real way. But the key is it's not my love pyramid scheme. Right? That was the point all the way from the beginning. That's why all through the Bible you just hear, hey, love each other. Love each other. Love each other and let it happen. Let everybody love everybody and see how different it can be. All right. That's it. These are the kind of days where I could just go. Because that's the thing that can change our lives on so many different levels. Okay? So now, check out Robert's the album, right? Listen to There's Light That Never Goes Out. Listen to Go By Nevermind today. All of these things to do. But especially, remember to be grateful for this day that he's made and every breath that he's given us. Okay? It's gratitude. It's gratitude in this season that where he came. It's pursuit. It's about pursuit. It's about unstoppable love for you and for me. And we need to take a little bit of time. We need to take a little bit of time recognizing that. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Love you.